My name is Eleanor Vance. I'm 38 years old, and I'm a senior project manager at Viridian Tech. I'd spent the last decade building a reputation for precision and calm under pressure, qualities I thought were respected, even valued. But then came the morning of the Q3 review. Our VP, Mark Jensen, stood at the front of the conference room, his face a mask of disappointment, and systematically dismantled my team's morale, one harsh word at a time. He blamed them for the catastrophic data migration failure on the new Helios project, a mistake that had cost us the prestigious Beaumont account and millions in projected revenue. I sat there, my hands clasped under the table, feeling a familiar heat rise in my chest, a prickle behind my eyes. It wasn't just the unfairness of it, it was the blatant lie. Mark knew, deep down, that this was his mistake, a consequence of his aggressive timeline and his dismissal of our warnings. My team, a group of brilliant, dedicated engineers, looked defeated, their faces pale under the fluorescent lights. I wanted to leap up, to scream, to shove the evidence I had right into Mark's smug face. But I didn't. Not then. I just tightened my grip on my own hands, knowing that this public humiliation was only the beginning, and that Mark's desperation would soon lead him to do something far more reckless. What he didn't realize was that when he crossed that line, he'd give me the leverage I needed to expose him for good. To understand why I didn't immediately erupt, you need to know Mark Jensen. He joined Viridian about 2 years prior, a direct hire into a VP role, bypassing a lot of the internal growth paths. He was a whirlwind of energy, always talking about disruption and lean methodologies. At first, it was exciting. He brought in new clients, pushed us to innovate. But beneath the veneer of dynamism was a deep-seated insecurity and a profound aversion to accountability. He'd charm clients, then leave the messy details for his teams to sort out. When things went well, he took all the credit. When they didn't, he found a scapegoat. My team, the Catalyst unit, was responsible for integrating new client systems, a highly complex and sensitive process. We were good at it because we were meticulous. We had protocols for everything, checklists, double checks, and a healthy skepticism for promises that sounded too good to be true. My desk, usually, was a testament to this order, clean, organized, with a small, heavy brass paperweight, a gift from my first successful project, sitting squarely on a stack of completed reports. It was a tangible reminder of the satisfaction of a job done right, carefully, thoroughly. The Helios project was supposed to be our biggest win yet. Beaumont Industries was a massive client, and their data migration was monumental. My team estimated a conservative 6-month timeline, with extensive testing phases. Mark, however, saw that as too slow. He wanted it done in 3. He kept pushing, citing market opportunities and competitive advantage. During our weekly syncs, I presented him with risk assessments, outlining potential data corruption, system incompatibilities, and the sheer volume of data we needed to transfer. I had a shared folder on the company server, accessible only to my team and approved senior management, where I diligently logged every concern, every overridden warning, every email from Mark pushing for acceleration. I called it Helios Risks and Mitigations. It was my digital safety net, a way to protect my team and myself if things went south. Eleanor, Mark had said one Tuesday morning, leaning back in his chair, a dismissive wave of his hand, I appreciate your thoroughness, truly. But we're not building a rocket ship here. This is software. We can iterate. We can fix things post-launch. The key is to launch. You and your team need to be more agile, less cautious. He even hinted that our caution was holding the company back, a subtle but unmistakable threat to our professional standing. I remember looking at my team members, Maya and Ben, across the table. Their faces mirrored my own frustration. We were being asked to compromise quality for speed, and Mark was making it clear there would be consequences if we didn't comply. We launched Helios on Mark's accelerated schedule, 3.5 months after the initial project kickoff. The first week was a tense success. Then came the second. That's when the reports started trickling in from Beaumont. Small discrepancies at first, then larger ones. Missing customer records, incorrect billing information, duplicated entries. It wasn't just a bug, it was a systemic failure in the data migration logic, precisely the kind of issue we'd warned Mark about needing more testing time to prevent. The cost was immediate and devastating. Beaumont pulled out, citing irreparable damage to trust and operational efficiency. Our stock dipped, and the board demanded answers. That's when Mark, true to form, executed his pivot. He called the Q3 review, the one where he publicly blamed my team. The Catalyst unit, he announced, his voice booming with feigned regret, failed to adequately test the migration protocols. Their lack of diligence has cost us a key client. He even presented a slide showing a timeline that conveniently omitted his directives to accelerate. He announced that all year-end bonuses for my team were on hold, pending a comprehensive performance review that would last for the rest of the quarter. The humiliation was palpable. My team exchanged glances, their shoulders slumped. Maya looked at me, a silent plea in her eyes. I knew then that I couldn't let this stand. This wasn't just about a project anymore, it was about integrity, about protecting the people who had worked tirelessly and honestly. The days following the review were a blur of damage control. My team was demoralized, working overtime to fix the mess Mark had created, all while their bonuses hung in the balance. I tried to schedule a meeting with Mark to present the documented evidence from my Helios risks and mitigations folder. He dodged my calls, his assistant claiming he was in back-to-back strategic sessions. I emailed him, outlining the timeline of our warnings and his directives. His reply was curt, "Eleanor, your team needs to focus on solutions, not excuses. The past is the past." I knew that going to HR with just my documentation might not be enough. Mark was a VP, well-connected, and good at spinning narratives. He could claim I was trying to shift blame, that my concerns were just standard project management CYA. I needed something more, something that would unequivocally expose his pattern of behavior, or better yet, something that would show his specific culpability beyond a reasonable doubt. I started compiling everything, not just for Helios, but for other projects where he'd overridden warnings. I pulled up old emails, chat logs, meeting minutes. It was painstaking work, late nights fueled by lukewarm coffee. Then, 2 weeks after the Q3 review, I got an email from HR. It wasn't about my team's performance review. It was about mine. "Eleanor," the email read, "from a junior HR rep named Sarah, Mark Jensen has requested a review of your personal performance, citing concerns about team leadership and accountability. He specifically mentioned reviewing your internal project documentation for compliance and best practices. Please be aware that all shared drive folders are subject to review by senior management." My blood ran cold. My internal project documentation. The Helios risks and mitigations folder. The one I thought was secure, that contained the detailed evidence of his directives and our warnings. He hadn't just requested a review. He had opened it. I knew it instantly. Why else would he specifically mention internal project documentation in the context of my performance review? He was looking for dirt, for anything he could twist to discredit me, to preemptively neutralize the evidence he knew I had. The man was desperate. He had gone into my secret file, not for compliance, but for self-preservation. That brass paperweight on my desk suddenly felt heavy, not with the weight of accomplishment, but with the pressure of the fight ahead. I called Sarah in HR. "Sarah," I said, keeping my voice level, "can you clarify what internal project documentation Mark is referring to? My team's project files are all standard. I also maintain a personal folder of documentation for my own project management processes. Is he referring to that?" Sarah hesitated. "He didn't specify, Eleanor. He just said internal project documentation. He has access to all folders on the shared drive that aren't specifically marked as private or restricted by IT." That was the crucial detail. My Helios risks and mitigations folder was on the shared drive, but I had set its permissions to restrict access to my immediate team and specific senior leaders, not Mark Jensen. I had double-checked it when I created it. But VPs often had elevated access. He had likely used his administrative privileges to bypass my settings. This wasn't just about him being a bad manager, this was a violation of professional trust and potentially a misuse of company resources to cover up his own incompetence. He had opened my secret file. I spent the next 48 hours methodically preparing. I didn't confront Mark directly. Instead, I focused on gathering irrefutable proof of his access and the contents of the folder. First, I took screenshots of the folder's access logs, showing Mark Jensen's user ID had accessed it multiple times over the past few days. Then, I printed out every single document within that folder, the risk assessments, the emails where Mark explicitly overruled our timeline warnings, the internal memos detailing the potential for data corruption. Each printout bore a timestamp. I created a new, secure, encrypted folder on my personal cloud drive, far away from Viridian's servers, and uploaded everything there. I also reached out to Maya and Ben, my two most senior team members. I showed them the access logs and the content of the folder. "He's trying to frame us, and me specifically," I explained quietly. But he just handed us the weapon to fight back. They were furious, but also relieved. They had felt powerless, but now they saw a path forward. Maya confirmed that she had also received a vague HR email about performance review from Mark, suggesting he was trying to cast a wide net of blame. My decisive action came on a Thursday morning. I booked a meeting with Evelyn Reed, the head of HR, not Sarah. Evelyn was known for her no-nonsense approach and her commitment to ethical conduct. I walked into her office, carrying a slim, dark binder. I placed it on her desk, the brass paperweight from my own desk sitting atop it, a silent symbol of the integrity I was fighting for. "Evelyn," I began, my voice steady, "I need to report a serious breach of professional conduct and a pattern of mismanagement by Mark Jensen." I laid out the timeline of the Helios project, the warnings, Mark's insistence on the accelerated schedule, and the subsequent failure. I showed her the printed risk assessments, the emails, the chat logs. Then, I presented the access logs for my Helios risks and mitigations folder. This folder, I explained, contained sensitive documentation of project risks and management directives. It was intended for my eyes and those of my direct team, with specific, limited senior management access. Mark Jensen bypassed those permissions, accessed this folder without my consent, and then used its existence as a pretext for a performance review of me, clearly attempting to find information to discredit me and my team after he had already publicly blamed us for his own mistake. Evelyn's expression tightened as she flipped through the pages. The access logs were damning. A VP using administrative access to snoop through a project manager's detailed, internal documentation folder, then using that as a basis for a punitive performance review, was a clear violation of company policy regarding professional conduct and privacy. It was an abuse of power. The aftermath was swift, though not instantaneous. Evelyn launched an internal investigation. Mark was called in, and I heard later that he tried to spin the story, claiming he was merely auditing project documentation for compliance. But the timestamps, the specific content of the folder, and the fact that he'd explicitly used it as a basis for my performance review, not a general project audit, contradicted his narrative. The fact that he'd already punished my team for his error made his actions look like a desperate cover-up. Within a week, Mark Jensen was placed on administrative leave. A month later, he was quietly transitioned out of Viridian Tech, the official reason given as differences in strategic vision. My team's bonuses were immediately reinstated, and Evelyn personally apologized to them for the unfair treatment. She also initiated a company-wide review of access permissions and data security, especially for sensitive internal documentation. I kept my Helios risks and mitigations folder, now moved to a truly private, encrypted drive, as a reminder. The brass paperweight still sits on my desk, but its meaning has subtly shifted. It's no longer just a symbol of meticulous work, it's a testament to the quiet strength it takes to stand up for what's right, even when the odds feel stacked against you. The company has moved on, and so have I. My team and I are now working on a new, promising project, and we're taking our time, doing it right.